Okay. Okay, now we're recording.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're keeping well and enjoying the day. The weather's a bit lovely today, so hope you're all enjoying the day. My name is Ronald, and you're welcome to the World Stroke Week talk on healthy eating. So I'm just going to introduce our speaker for today. Orna is a dietitian with the Irish Heart Foundation. In her role, she coordinates nutrition information for the public, health professionals, and patient support groups. And she also leads several health promotion programs across at-risk communities. Orna is a CORU registered senior dietitian specializing in heart health. Prior to the Irish Heart Foundation, she worked clinically for several years at St. James Hospital across a wide range of areas, including cardiology, cardiac surgery, and cardiac rehabilitation. She holds a first-class honors Bachelor of Science in Human Nutrition and Dietetics from Technology University Dublin and Trinity College Dublin, and is a member of the INDI, and that is the professional body for dietitians. She's passionate about women's health and behavior change, and in 2014 completed a research master's in this area with University College Dublin while working at the National Maternity Hospital. Without further ado, if we were in the hall now, I'd probably say with a round of applause or ovation, please welcome Orna O'Brien as she gives her talk. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a million, Ronald. Just give me 1 second as I share my slides, and it would be great if you could let me know, Ronald, if you can see the slides all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, super. That's great. Okay, and hello, everybody, and it's great to be here to talk to you all this week about eating well after a stroke. And I know food-wise, there can be a huge amount of misinformation out there in regards to our heart health and looking after our brains and our blood vessels and all of that. So what I'd love to talk through today is evidence-based dietary strategies that are going to reduce your risk of having another stroke, and also to help you cope with the consequences of the stroke that you might be living with. So, you know, stroke can have a really wide range of impacts on your life. You know, it can be very obviously traumatic. You can have swallowing difficulties, severe weight loss. You might have had, you know, tube feeding at some stage. There can be a lot to get your head around in terms of losing your, you know, sense of losing your independence and all the emotional, behavioral, and cognitive changes that we can experience after a stroke. Communication difficulties, grieving for your old life and what you thought of as, you know, how you defined yourself as a person. So and from that to even just very simple daily activities like chopping up food, going grocery shopping, feeding yourself. So while stroke can be, you know, have a huge impact on your life, it's also a great opportunity to be able to take a look at your lifestyle, and it's a great time to, you know, look with fresh eyes on maybe what you've been doing today, what you would have liked to have changed, and what you can do going forward. So what we're going to go through today is, first of all, getting into the right mindset for change. So before we actually make changes to the food we're eating or our lifestyles, sometimes this is the step that we forget to take. We're going to talk through some stroke protective dietary patterns. We're going to talk through if you've experienced weight loss and how to maintain a healthy body weight if you're experiencing unintentional weight loss. And also on the flip side, if you are looking to reduce your fat mass and, you know, preserve your muscle mass. We'll go through a couple of useful resources, and then we're going to have lots of time for a Q&A today. So I think I'm going to talk for about a half an hour, and then we'll have loads of time for questions after that. So the first step is really looking at your risk factors. So there's lots of things that we can't control in terms of our risk factors for another stroke, and they are age, gender, family history, whether you've had a previous stroke or a heart event, if you have type 2 diabetes or any type of diabetes, atrial fibrillation. But there's also lots that we can change and manage. So whether we smoke or not, if we drink a lot of alcohol, is our blood pressure in target? Is our cholesterol in target? Our blood glucose or blood sugar levels in target? Excess weight, around, especially around your middle, so more of that apple shape rather than a pear shape. Your diet, and how physically active you are. So you'll see that the list of things that we can change is a lot longer than the list of things we can't change. That's good news. So even if you've, been dealt a bad genetic hand, or you've had, a lot of bad luck and things up against you, there is so much that we can work on. So lifestyle changes really start with finding your why. So getting into the right mindset for change, you need to have strong, powerful reasons for wanting to make that change. So, a good place to start is asking some questions to yourself. So, are you happy with your cardiovascular health, so your heart health at the moment? Why is it important to you to improve your heart health? So, what is the underlying driver for you to make changes in your life? You don't have to answer here. They're just questions to consider for your own life that can help you really identify what your core values are and what are the things driving you to make these changes. How confident do you feel that you can make changes? So you might really, really want to change something in your lifestyle, but if you're not feeling that you have the skills, the time, or that there's lots of barriers in your way to making that change, that can really impact how much you believe you can actually make those changes. And spending a bit of time thinking about what difference that particular change could make to you, your friends, your family. So what difference could it make in your lifestyle? So these questions are really good to ask at the start of changing your behavior, changing your lifestyle, because they give you a focus. Another way we can do it is to build awareness of, where you're at and what areas you could maybe benefit most from changing. So for some people, there's kind of a list of questions I often go through, and in your head you can kind of tick them off as I talk through them now. But the first set is all about mental well-being. So are you getting at least 7 hours sleep of good quality sleep every night? Do you feel like you get enough me time? So that time where you just switch off, whether it's out in the fresh air, meeting up with friends, unplugging from screens, just whatever you like to do to relax. Do you find it easy to switch off or calm your mind when you have racing thoughts? Physical activity wise, do you get 30 minutes of physical activity at least 5 days a week? So are you getting that movement in? And are you doing any physical activity that's going to support your muscles or your bones? So they're going to be exercises that are weight bearing, like walking, or anything that puts stress on your bones or your joints. So walking, yoga, Pilates. Um, do you regularly break up sitting time with regular movement breaks throughout the day? And if you're in a wheelchair, are you just moving your body, even your upper body, to get those stretches in? And then nutrition wise, very simple, but do you have a regular meal pattern? So are you eating your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner every day, or are you skipping meals? Do you eat at least 5 to 7 portions of fruit and veg every day? Are you trying to get in your high fiber foods, so your fruit and veg, your oats, whole grains, peas, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds? And if you eat fish, do you eat at least 2 portions a week? And ideally, one of them being an oily fish like salmon. And lastly, do you try to not snack on drinks and foods that are high in fat, sugar, and salt? So looking at all those questions, we're all different. Every one of us on this call are going to have different priorities here. So you might say in your head, the first two sections, great, I have that ticked off. I do all of those things. There's going to be one or two areas there where, uh, you think that's where you're best to focus your energies on. And also, if you look at that list and you say, oh my God, I need to, to focus on all of these things, just, pick one or two. What is something that's standing out to you that you think you could actually achieve, that's doable, that's realistic? And once you start making a change there, that'll build your confidence and you can continue from there. So, what does a stroke protective diet actually look like? So, the best evidence we have for um, dietary patterns is either the Mediterranean diet, which we see on the right here, or the DASH diet here, which is on the left. And you'll see from both of them that they're actually really, really similar. So at the bottom of the Mediterranean diet, there's, lots of movement, social connection. So sharing your meal times with people, connecting with people in your lives. Then all of these foods, very much based on lots of fruit, lots of vegetables, whole grains, um, replacing butter with healthy fats like olive oil or rapeseed oil, small portions of nuts and seeds, using herbs and spices instead of salt to flavor foods, eating a little bit of fish twice a week, limiting excess red meat and processed meat, and limiting alcohol as well, and sugar. So very, very similar patterns, but what does that actually look like in practice? So um, often I get asked questions like, what do I need to cut out? Or is it okay to eat this food? Is it okay to eat that food? And there's this sense of, I need to cut things out and exclude things to eat well for my heart health. And that's, right in some ways, but to be honest, a lot of us are missing all the essential nutrients that we really need to protect ourselves from another stroke or to protect our heart health going forward. So moving the dial towards what do I need to include every day to protect myself? Um, Very simply, this looks like on a plate, trying to fill half your plate with fruit and vegetables or salad. Doesn't really matter, you know, it how pretty it looks or how fancy it is. Honestly, it's just if you can build closer to this ratio every time you eat, you're doing a great job. Protein foods, so having quarter of your plate being your protein food, so meat, fish, eggs, beans, lentils, that kind of food, and a quarter your high fiber, whole grain, starchy foods. And if you have that 3 times a day with a glass of water or any kind of sugar-free drink like milk, tea, coffee, that is honestly 90% of the the work done. So if you take anything away from today, just start trying to bring your plate every time you eat a little bit closer to this ratio. So it might just mean, even if you're ordering a takeaway, can you add an extra side of greens with that? Or cook up some frozen veg that you have in the freezer to have with a meal. So you're just trying to get a bit closer to this ratio every time. So what foods do we need to be including? So we need to eat mostly fruit and vegetables, so 5 to 7 portions of fruit and veg every day. And to get 5 to 7 portions, so a portion is about the size of my fist. Um, that's a lot. We need to basically be having 1 or 2 portions at every meal, or certainly, using fruit as snacks in between meals. So make life easy on yourself. The frozen, the pre-chopped versions are great. Whatever helps you to pack in the fruit and veg is a great thing. Tinned, fresh, frozen, canned, it doesn't matter, dried, go for it. Um, Eat some so grainy foods, starchy vegetables. So these are things like your bread, pasta, rice, um, whole grain breakfast cereals. Fiber is so, so important for our heart health. It helps to pull down our cholesterol. It also helps to keep us fuller for longer. Really, really heart healthy. It helps to control our weight as well. Um, and then protein foods, so legumes. So we're talking about beans, peas, lentils, fish, seafood, eggs, poultry, and meat. Um, Really, really important to feed your bones and your muscles. So protein's really important for growth and repair. So really our bones and muscles need to be fed every 3 to 5 hours so that we maintain our muscle mass and and our bone strength, particularly as we age, and particularly if we're less physically active as well. So we tend to be very good at protein at dinner time, with our meat or our fish. We're okay at lunchtime and we're not great at breakfast time. So if you can try and up the protein, particularly at your breakfast time, that's a good way to get protein in. It's good to divide it across the day. So for fish, we want to have fish twice a week. If you can limit processed meats like sausages, bacon, salami, ham, those kind of meats to as much as possible. And if you are choosing red meat, try to go for the unprocessed versions. So try to choose fresh when possible. Um, and In terms of milk, yogurt, and cheese, so these are our dairy foods. So we want to try and include them 3 times a day. So it doesn't really matter whether it's full fat or low fat. If you have high cholesterol, it's probably a good idea to go for the low fat versions. If you don't have high cholesterol, whatever one you prefer, it's really, really up to you. Um, and then healthy oils, nuts, and seeds. So these are the heart healthy fats that we need to protect our hearts. And of course, cutting back on junk food takeaways, drinks that are high in fat, sugar, and salt. Now, once we get to here, like they're the basics, it really comes down to what your priority is. So maybe you want to lower your cholesterol, maybe you want to lower your blood pressure, you might want to change your body composition. So meaning you might want to lose some fat mass but maintain your muscle mass. So we can talk through those now. So if you are looking to reduce your cholesterol, there's a couple of things we can do. So examples of some heart healthy swaps would be instead of butter, could you choose, a low fat spread, one of the spreads that's made from olive oil or sunflower oil? Could you use pesto or nut butter or hummus or even smashed avocado? There's lots of different ideas there of foods that are all full of heart healthy fats. For cooking oils, could you switch from butter, if you're frying with butter, or coconut oil to a heart healthy oil like olive oil or rapeseed oil? Including a handful of nuts and seeds every day can also bring down your cholesterol. And then limiting those ultra processed foods that are high in fat, sugar, and salt. So crisps, chocolate, cakes, biscuits. And then we can also add in what we call functional foods. So these are foods that will additionally help to pull down your cholesterol. So oats and barley are a great food to reduce your cholesterol. They contain a sticky fiber called beta glucan, and this pulls down your cholesterol by about 3 to 5%. And you can get that in, your porridge, your overnight oats, a soup that has barley in it or a stew that has barley in it, granola, oat bread, lots of different ideas there. Nuts, as I've already said, they help. A handful of nuts a day will help to pull down your cholesterol. Plant sterols or plant stanols, the little yogurt drinks that you can get in a supermarket. And also soya-based foods, so things like tofu, soya beans, so edamame beans, soya mince, soya milk, soya yogurt. If you're looking to lower your blood pressure, we're really looking at salt here. So limiting salt, particularly the salt that we find in processed foods, like salty snacks like popcorn or crisps or um, processed meats like ham or sausages. If you try to cook from scratch, so you're making food from yourself at home or somebody else is making it at home, you're automatically going to cut out a lot of the salt that you would get from those ultra processed foods. So that's a really good place to start to reduce down your blood pressure. We know that reducing your salt intake takes it takes your takes about a month to see the results, but you can there's a really, really strong relationship showing that once you reduce down your salt intake, you'll see a reduction in your blood pressure. So it's really, really powerful change to make. Looking at using lots of herbs and spices instead of salt to flavor foods. But most importantly, I think, is time. So when you're used to eating a lot of salty foods, it's very hard to get used to the taste of food without salt. But we grow new taste buds every 2 to 3 weeks. So it is possible to change your taste palette, your palette for what you enjoy. So you just have to stick with it, and eventually your palate will become accustomed to a less salty diet. And then if you're trying to reduce your fat mass, so lose a little bit of weight, a couple of things you can do are just to very simple, but to slow down your meal time. So we're often eating while we're talking to people, we're on the phone, we're watching something on TV. If you take just a few, get rid of the screens at meal times and just slow down the speed of what you're eating, it can really help your brain to catch up with the fact that you are eating. It helps your brain to monitor, oh, I've actually been eating for a while now. We tend to get fuller quicker. And chewing our food. So most people chew their food about 2 or 3 times before we swallow. But there's really good research to show that if you swallow 20 to 25 times before you swallow, it allows your brain to measure better how much you're eating. So it's a really nice way to eat the right amount for you. And we know people who do this, they eat about 10 to 12% less across all of the meals throughout the day. And then the fullness scale is also another really easy way to regulate your appetite naturally. So before you go into your next meal, have a think about where you are on the fullness scale out of 10. So you never really want to be entering a meal where you're 1 out of 10 full, where you're ravenous and you'd eat anything that was put in front of you, because that's the kind of time that we tend to reach for the sugary snacks or the fatty snacks just for that quick hit of energy. So you want to enter a meal maybe around 3 out of 10 and exit a meal maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 in terms of fullness. So you don't want that, Christmas Day can't stuff anything more into your stomach, uncomfortable fullness, which would be 10 out of 10. You want to be somewhere in the middle always. So you're not getting too hungry, but you're not getting uncomfortably full. And often if people are really struggling with weight, I often ask them like, how are you sleeping? Because sleep has a huge impact on how what kinds of foods we choose, how motivated we feel to get out and go for a walk or do some kind of exercise. So if you're not sleeping right, your mood, your appetite regulation, all of that is going to be totally distorted. And also portion sizes are of course a really important factor. So that's something that we can talk a little bit more about if you'd like to delve into. Um, and finally, one other important part of managing weight is making sure that you're doing enough physical activity and movement to keep your muscle mass. So your muscle mass is really what preserves your metabolic rate. It keeps your metabolism going. So if you're not building muscle mass and preserving your muscle mass, you're more likely to gain weight. So trying to include some kind of strengthening physical activity throughout the day is brilliant. Um, on the flip side, then, if you are trying to gain weight, what do we do? So little and often. So if you don't have a good appetite at the moment, a big meal in front of you is actually just going to put you off. So make sure it's something that's small and manageable and that it's something you feel like you can actually sit into and eat. Try not to skip meals. So even if you're not that hungry, have a few mouthfuls at each mealtime. Try to include a high protein food at all of your meals. And as I said earlier, especially breakfast, because we don't tend to include a lot of protein at our breakfasts. Nourishing snacks. So I can go through some ideas now in the next few slides. Nourishing snacks in between your meals. And it's okay to have one or two desserts a day if you are trying to gain weight. You know, you have to think about this in terms of your priorities. It's really important to preserve your weight and not to, if you're losing a lot of weight, you're going to be losing a lot of muscle mass as well. So I know it sounds weird for a dietitian to say, but one or two desserts across the day if you're trying to gain weight is fine. Nourishing drinks, so full fat milk, fruit juice, lattes, hot chocolates, and creamy drinks. And ready-made meals or batch cooking for a day, days where you just have low energy, you don't feel like cooking. And there's also lots of ways we can add some extra nourishment into your foods. So we call this food fortification, but we're trying to do that with sugar and fatty foods like oil and heart healthy fats, not so much butter and cream, which are going to be high in our saturated fats. They're going to be not so good for our heart health. So there's ways we can add in calories to our foods, but still avoid the saturated fats. And also, if you're noticing that you are losing a lot of weight, that maybe the notches in your belt are you're using more of those, your jewelry is loose on you, or you have a scales at home and if you've noticed some weight loss, don't stay silent about it. Say it to somebody, go to the doctor, ask for a referral to the dietitian. So just to give you lots of ideas for breakfast, so fried eggs or baked beans on toast, porridge or cereal with full fat milk, and you can add in dried fruits, nuts, maple syrup, granola with full fat milk or full fat yogurt and fruit, nut butters with jam on toast, omelets with cheese, and scrambled egg with cheese on toast. So really nourishing foods. And there's lots of main meal ideas there. So if you want, you can kind of screenshot this or go back in the recording and just take a picture of it. Um, Sandwiches with lots of nourishing fillings there, stews, curries, casseroles, shepherd's pie or fish pie, pasta meals with meat, chicken, fish, or cheese, chilies, uh, lentil and bean soup with some grated cheese and bread, stir-fry chicken, falafel with hummus or tzatziki. So lots there to go through. And in terms of some nourishing snacks that you can have between meals, so scones, little bowl of breakfast cereal, hummus and tzatziki, on pita bread or crackers, any type of nut butter and banana sandwich, nut butter with apple slices or crackers, yogurt with fruit and honey, cereal bars, flapjacks, protein bars, cream crackers with cheese, cheese with grapes or other fruits, avocados, olives, nuts, dried fruits. So loads of ideas and lots of desserts there as well. So milky desserts, crumbles, ready-made desserts if they're easier for you, mousses, high protein yogurts. Um, what we can do in terms of food fortification is so for to savory foods like potatoes, soups, casseroles, curries, and pastas, we can add in a couple of spoons of dried milk powder. So that's going to up the protein content of those foods. Grated cheese, a little bit of pesto, so red or green pesto, nut butter, olive oil, hummus, or mayonnaise. And then to sweeter things like desserts or pancakes, yogurts, puddings, ice creams, fruit, smoothies, porridge, we can also add dried milk powder. Again, really good for protein. but also maple syrup, sugar, honey, and jam. Um, and then lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about dysphagia or swallowing difficulties, because this is a very common but very often under-recognized effect of stroke. So when we have a normal swallow, um, the food goes down our food pipe into our stomach. But if we have dysphagia or some kind of swallowing difficulties, which can often happen after a stroke, when we swallow, maybe a few droplets or crumbs of that food might make their way down the wrong pipe and into our lungs instead of the stomach. So it's really, really common. Um, you can so just to show you how you can actually what actually happens during this. Um, so a speech and language therapist will diagnose you with dysphagia. So if you're concerned that you're noticing, let's say, recurrent chest infections, or you find yourself coughing a lot around meal times or clearing your throat a lot, or you just feel like food isn't going down right, then definitely say it to your doctor and get a referral to a speech and language therapist. And what they'll do is they'll assess your swallow and they'll give you a particular, they'll prescribe a particular texture of diet for you. So, for example, you might have to have, a slightly minced and moist diet, so that things are just chopped up a bit smaller and it's easier for your swallow to um it's safer for you to swallow that type of texture. In some more extreme cases, you might need some of the drinks, the fluids that you drink thickened, but that would normally be picked up in the hospital sooner after a stroke. So make sure you get assessed. They might need to put you on a texture modified diet or fluids. And they'll also give you lots of exercises to help you swallow safely. So they might say, every time you swallow, swallow twice, or you might need to turn your head a particular way to have a stronger swallow. And the speech and language therapist will also talk you through different positions. So how to actually position yourself when you're eating so that you're more likely to have a safe swallow. Um, okay. So um, in terms of if you do have a swallowing difficulties, a couple of tips are just to sit upright. So make sure that you're, let gravity do its job, in that don't be eating or drinking when you're lying down. If you're sitting upright, you're more likely to have the food or the drink go into your food pipe rather than down to your lungs. And try to stay upright for at least 30 minutes after every drink or meal. Don't drink when you're lying down. And take your time. If you're not confident with your swallow at the moment, it's okay to go slowly, and you might need to reheat your dinner halfway through through having it. And try to not talk while you're eating or drinking. So really just focus on the meal or the snack at hand. When we try to talk, we introduce a lot of air um, into our food pipe, so it can make it more likely to go down to our lungs than our stomach. And take small amounts at a time, especially liquids. There might be certain foods as well that you've noticed are more difficult to swallow, so just be mindful of those and flag them to the speech and language therapist or your doctor. And never use a straw for drinking, so use the actual glass or cup itself. And it's also a good idea just after you eat to make sure that there's not food left in your mouth. So having a little drink of water after a meal. So how can a dietitian help with this? So most people who have swallowing difficulties end up being malnourished. So they lose a lot of weight and dehydrated. So dehydration is really common. I think 75% of people with swallowing difficulties are regularly dehydrated. So the dietitian will help you um, to manage your weight, to keep your weight on. So using a lot of the advice we talked about earlier, and also will advise certain nourishing drinks, like we talked about earlier, trying to make sure you're getting in enough fluid throughout the day. And will also, if you have to go on a texture modified diet, will help you to make them more appetizing so that you actually enjoy them a lot more. So I'm just going to finish up on a couple of small little changes that you could consider making after this talk today. So little simple changes that can support your heart health and protect your and reduce your risk of having a stroke. So something as simple as even just having a pint of water every morning. We lose about a pint of water every night when we're sleeping, and it's really important to rehydrate in the morning. Look after your mental health. Can you take 2 minutes to just do a little body scan of your body, or 2 minutes of mindful breathing just to, check out for a few minutes and have a little bit of relaxation in your day? You could use 15 minutes to think ahead for what meals you might like to have for the week ahead, so that you're planning, you're getting on top of, you're setting yourself up for success, really. And social connection, really, really important for our heart health and our mental health. Plan a catch up with a friend or family member you haven't spoken to in a while. You could consider batch cooking and freezing some portions of meals for those days where you don't have a lot of energy. Or you could just commit to, having a digital detox, so not being on the phone or watching hours and hours of TV tomorrow. And trying to make your next meal as close to that plate model as you can. And then also, if something's on your mind, you could book an appointment to speak to your doctor, or very simply just go out and spend a little bit more time in nature. Or lastly, try one little thing that can bring a bit more movement into your day. So you're moving your body, stretching it. So just to summarize what I talked through there, it's essential to get into the right mindset for change. Try to follow each meal as close to the plate model as you can. If there's one, piece of advice I could give you to mind your heart health going forward, it's to just generally try to eat more whole foods. So the less processed, the better for your heart. If you want to lose weight, look at your sleeping pattern, slow down your eating, making sure you're chewing correctly and the right amount, using that fullness scale we talked about, and look at your portion sizes as well. And if you need to gain weight, just remember a little and often throughout the day, and food fortification. And finally, swallowing difficulties, watch out for dehydration, weight loss, and incorrect textures in the foods that you're eating. So we have lots of booklets available, which I think you're all very familiar with, and our nurses helpline number is there. There's also lots of lovely heart healthy recipes up on our website, if you'd like to have a look at them. And we also have the food shopping card available if you'd like to reduce the, get a better handle on reading labels when you go to the supermarket. So I will leave it there for now, and I might open the floor up for questions.
Thank you, Orna. And please, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask away.
And Ronald, can I just check, are we finishing the recording now?
Yeah, finish the recording. Yes. Sorry.
Hi, Orna.
Hi, Sue.